Hey, I have a second channel. Cube Comp MTDX.
Hey everybody, this video is definitely long overdue. Today I'm going to be talking about Windows 11. I've actually installed it on a computer and I've taken some time to look through the operating system to get my opinions on it. So, that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So here's the computer in question I installed Windows 11 on. This is an AMD A6 6420K, and as you may probably know, this is not a compatible system with Windows 11, but it runs it just fine. Not a problem. It runs just about as good as it does Windows 10. It's got 8 gigs of RAM. It's got a 250 gig SSD. Got a 500 gig hard drive in there, which I don't have a partition on right now. We're just using the SSD. So we're using the built-in APU graphics. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start it up and have a look. Okay, so here we are at the Windows 11 desktop, and if you're new to Windows 11, there are some things you may notice right away that aren't typical. As you can see, the icons are centered on the taskbar, including the Start button. The Start menu opens up in the center, rather than to the left. That's one thing that people haven't been exactly that crazy about. I'm not signed in with a Microsoft account. This is actually a Windows 11 Pro. I installed this without internet. I disconnected my internet when I went through the out-of-box experience, or in other words, the out-of-box setup, and therefore was able to bypass the Microsoft account requirement. And I should note that when you're on Windows 11 Home, you actually have to sign in with the Microsoft account to set up your own computer, and that's one thing that people have not been happy about. Luckily though, at least for the time being, there is a workaround which I'll be focusing on in a later video. So again, this is Windows 11 Pro, and this is the Start menu. And I'm not exactly a fan of the Start menu. Neither was I a big fan of Windows 10 Start menu, but I'm actually saying this is a little worse, because in Windows 10 Start menu, for example, I'll hop over to Windows 10 here on the Plexi. Now this is a classic shell or open shell here, but for example, this is the Windows 10 Start menu, and you can see that I have deleted all of the groups of tiles. That's one thing I do if I actually do set up a system with the Windows 10 style Start menu, is I will get rid of those tiles over here and just solely use the all programs list over here. And you can see on Windows 10 we have, of course, the user folder, documents, pictures, settings, all that good stuff. So you do have some shortcuts in there. I'd like to see more, and I think you can actually customize this a bit more. Hop back over to Windows 11, and you can see when you launch the Start menu, you have this area where you can pin your own applications, and you have this recommended section down here. And in this area you will see recently installed programs and applications, and you also believe you'll also find things that you commonly use. That ends up down here. So for example, if I click more, I mean, it's just a history of things I have launched on the computer. And up here again is the pin section. I've gotten rid of the default pinned apps. So it was like a page and a half, something like that, worth of these pinned apps. The thing I would like to see is the ability to more easily pin shortcuts like documents, desktop, pictures, music, videos, that kind of stuff. I mean, File Explorer is there, and if you click File Explorer, and when that launches, then yeah, you can go over here to Quick Access and go to, or down to this PC and go to Downloads, Documents, Music, Pictures, Videos, or whatever. But it was just so nice having it right there in the start menu. And of course, like I say, this is my first time using Windows 11. So it's like, if you right click, you do get options like you would get in Windows 10, which that's nice to see if they have sort of retained that. But like I mentioned, it's so we're going to settings. Let's go into settings here, and I'll talk a bit more about settings shortly. So the thing about Windows 11 is, see the normally I would just right click and I could easily find. Let's see about taskbar settings. Do we have settings for start? That's what I was trying to figure out, is where are the settings for start? See, in Windows 11, it's things like that are harder to find. And for example, if I right click on the taskbar, normally I would get more options than just taskbar settings. They've taken out some stuff, and I'm not really a big fan of that. Like for example, if I want to open Task Manager, used to be I could just right click and choose Task Manager, but now I have to do Control Delete to get Task Manager. And you can see the Task Manager, at least on this build of Windows 11, is like the Windows 10 Task Manager, and I do think there is an update coming. It may be in the next build of Windows 11, which I think is 22H2, which will be out later this year. There's also some new features coming, including the ability to run Android applications in the OS, but I think the system requirements for that are even higher than the system requirements for actual Windows 11. So, not too much to see here. But yeah, let's go to File Explorer again. And let's say, for example, if I want to go right click and do something, you can see they've condensed the menu down to a much smaller menu. In order to get the classic menu, I have to go in here and select some more options. This is very annoying. Very annoying. And I've looked up online ways to disable this, and it's like, I've tried a couple of things and it doesn't seem to work. But the key thing is I should not have to jump through hoops to do simple things like this. And another thing is setting your default applications, like your default web browser, your default photo viewer. It's more difficult in Windows 11. So we go back to settings. And we go to apps. In Windows 10, you used to simply have, it used to be a lot simpler. Here's a little bit of footage showing you what you have in Windows 10 versus Windows 11 and how difficult it can be to, let's say, set your default web browser. Okay, so in Windows 10, setting your default applications, such as your web browser or your photo viewer, for example, are very easy to do. You just go into settings, and of course the start menu is not the Windows 10 menu. As you can see, I have Classic or OpenShell installed. But when you go into the Windows 10 settings, you will go to Apps and Default Apps. And everything is grouped by, for example, music, photos, video player, web browser, etc. So changing the settings in here is very easy to do. Whereas on Windows 11, to change your settings, you had to your defaults, you would go into settings, and if you go to apps, default apps, as you can see, things are a bit different here. You can set your defaults for applications by app. For example, if I want to change my default browser, I can't just go to web browser and change it from Microsoft Edge to default. I have to do this. I have to change the default file types for every one of these files, from HTML files to PDF, and this will show you what that involves. We have to select Chrome on all of these, and generally a lot of times you'll get that little Microsoft Edge pop up asking you to try it out and blah blah blah. See, this is ridiculous. They're making it more difficult to change the defaults from the Microsoft defaults to whatever software you wish to use. And this takes a whole lot more time to do. See, you even get a prompt for mail. So guys, that's, like I say, that is just ridiculous. You got to do all that just to change your default application. So, but it just comes to show, like for example, I want to change the default for, let's see, AVI. You get these prompts for everything. No, I do not want to try the default Microsoft application. Otherwise, I would not be changing it from this to something else. So I still got to install some other programs. For example, I would change this over to Media Player Classic or Zoom Player. But again, it just comes to show how difficult it is to change defaults for your programs and applications in Windows 11 versus Windows 10. So yeah, it's definitely ridiculous. Now the settings window, or settings app if you want to call it that, Windows 11, I do kind of like its layout better than Windows 10. Like for example, when you launch Windows 10, and of course I'm switching over to the Plexi, which is running Windows 10. This is the settings home page, and you have everything's kind of in the center. You have these large icons you have to click on, and you have this, I guess one called waste of space up top. Whereas in Windows 11, when you launch settings, which I'll do again, you can see that it's kind of like opening up the system properties in a way. You get, let's see, your computer name and your OEM if you had an OEM. And there's options to rename the computer if you wish. You do have some quick settings on the main screen, like your display, sound, notifications, focus assist, power settings, storage, multitasking, activation, troubleshoot, recovery, projecting to this PC, remote desktop, clipboard, and about. So here's the system properties. So for example, you see it's 21H2. That's the build of Windows 11 that we're running. And you have additional settings down here. So again, as you may be able to see, device specifications, we have an AMD A6 6420K APU. It's got a mild overclock on it, 4.6 GHz, 8 gigs of memory. So the CPU is definitely not within the support list of Windows 11. And this system does not have TPM. At least I don't think this particular processor has it. The motherboard does seem to support it. It just depends on what CPU you have installed. So Device Manager still launches in its own classic window. So, in case you were probably wondering, on a system that is not on the that's not deemed compatible with Windows 11, do drivers install for incompatible hardware? The answer to that would be yes. Like for example, the graphics and the CPU, which I mean that's pretty much a given. But you can see that we don't have any unknown devices in here. Now I have not actually had to install any device drivers manually. They're all there. So interesting to note that if you do wish to install Windows 11 on an older computer that's not technically supported, Your mileage may vary, but this system that is supposedly at least 7 years old, according to the PC Health Check app, seems to be running Windows 11 fine. I mean, you've seen me going through the OS, and it's actually pretty solid. So, for example, we'll go to Windows Update here. Windows Update settings are a little different. If we try to check for updates, here's the thing I do wonder, guys. It does seem to be installing security updates from what I can tell. If we go to update history, you can see, for example, cumulative update for Windows 11, update for Windows 11. So, for example, we've got driver updates there. These are the drivers that is installed off the internet. Definition files for the Microsoft Defender. Malicious software removal tool. So it does seem like it's installing security updates and stuff. That was kind of one of the big things about Windows 11 is if you were running it on unsupported hardware, or more or less systems that did not meet the requirements, would you get updates? It seems like you will. It does seem like you will. What's interesting is I was expecting to find prompts about Windows 11 not being, at least this system not meeting the requirements. I've heard rumors that there'll be a watermark in the bottom right corner of the screen. Maybe on, I believe that's on a future build of Windows 11. We'll have to see what happens in the future. But that's one thing that if you were to install Windows 11 on a system that was not within specifications that are required for the OS, you likely would run into issues when you go to install a new feature update of Windows 11. But if you happen to know how to install it using, of course, if you know how to install it on a system that doesn't meet the requirements, then chances are you probably would know how to do a feature update. And I should mention that I did a in-place upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11 on this computer using a trick from the familiar USB formatting tool known as Rufus, and I have that in the video as well. So, now of course I'm not going super duper deep into the OS, but of course there's a look at pretty much what comes pre-installed on Windows 11. It's interesting to note, do we even have okay, where's Windows accessories? Must not be a separate accessories list anymore. For example, it looks like Windows Media Player got ripped out and replaced, or at least on the front end. And I did see Media Player. So some of the integrated apps are a little bit different. You do have, like, say, Music Library, and you can add stuff in here. And it does seem like this does not require a Microsoft account to use, which interesting to note. So it's like a dumbed down, simple version of Windows Media Player that may not have support for burning CDs. I don't know. I haven't really messed with that yet. Oh, take that back. We do have Windows Media Player in Windows 11. So it's still there. And interesting to note, you do still have the classic Windows Media Player in Windows 11. So there's a few things I've done to Windows 11. For example, I use the same shortcut that I use on Windows 10 to enable the import pictures and videos wizard. I've also brought in the classic Windows Photo Viewer application. I don't think there's any pictures on here for the view. I don't know. There's like nothing on here, it seems. No sample pictures there. Interesting. So as you can see, we still do have the Windows Photo Viewer, which you have to you actually have to use a registry fix to enable that. It's just the exact same process for Windows 10. You can download this off the internet, and of course there's a look at the wallpapers. And I do say that Windows 11 does have some pretty looking wallpapers. And there's a whole variety of them here. And that kind of brings me on to the next topic. See, Windows 11, it's this pretty OS. It reminds me of Windows Vista, except Vista was more useful. This, however, is less useful in my opinion. So you have this pretty OS that is kind of locked out by hardware requirements that really, as you can see, I mean, we're running this on a system that technically does not meet the requirements, but it's running fine. Kind of different than Windows Vista back in the day, where the requirements are there for performance reasons. This is here for a totally different reason. You have a pretty OS that's locked out by these crazy hardware requirements. You have changes to the OS that make things more difficult to use, like the start menu. I mean, you can draw your own conclusions on that, but when you, like other things like trying to set default applications, they made it more difficult. They made things way more difficult. The new Explorer, although it does have some pretty cool stuff in it, I'm not exactly a fan of how it groups stuff. For example, in details, you see how everything is really spaced out. When you have a bunch of files, I find it very annoying to have stuff spaced out. And there's probably a way you maybe could get things back to where they need to be. And again, something I shouldn't have to do. So we go back to icons there, and again, just show more options. I like to just be able. I don't like this at all. It's really, it defeats the purpose when you have to hit that button over and over again to get certain things that are not in the simplified menu. I mean, you got these options here, but it would definitely take some getting used to, and it's still, in my opinion, it's counterproductive. Now, for another example, if I want to change something like notifications on, for example, on Windows 10. One click. Excuse me, I meant to right click. So you have things like Focus Assist right there. You don't have to go into the settings window to change those kinds of things. Whereas on Windows 11, you have to do that. You have to go into You have to go into a separate window to do a lot of things that you didn't have to do on Windows 10. So, I mean, you have things about Windows 11 that, again, make it more difficult to use. And it's just, in my opinion, it's like a dressed-up version of Windows 10 that's more difficult to use, and is not allowed to run, or technically, I should say, is not supported on computers that are let's say older than maybe 3 or 4 years old. So you can kind of draw your own conclusions there. Now, another thing I'd like to talk about is there are alternative options for some of these things. Now, I meant to show you earlier, but let's go ahead and look at the control panel. So there's a control panel. It's still there, and it still has a good bit of stuff in it. Like, for example, there are some old things like backup and restore. That's still there. And it looks like that button is still broken. That's been broken since Windows 7. I doubt they would even spend time on fixing that anyway. Now, I should mention that in Windows 11 they did fix the loophole to where you could access the classic system properties. For example, on Windows 10, I'll show you in a minute. So if you click that on Windows 11, it takes you to the settings app to show you your system properties. Whereas on Windows 10, if you go to a control panel, which again, I don't need to do all that, just since I have the classic start menu here. And you can see it goes into the classic system properties. And I should note that even on this ain't one of the latest build of Windows 10, but I have confirmed that this does in fact work on Windows 10 21H2. So, I mean, just little things like that. And in case you're wondering, as I was saying, there are alternative methods for like the start button, or start menu rather. There are applications out there you can use to replace the start menu. Now, the one I've been using for years on Windows 10, Classic Shell, and now Open Shell, which is the same thing. Although you can install it on Windows 11, it doesn't really integrate well with Windows 11. For example, I don't have it installed right now, but if I click the start button with Open Shell installed, it opens this start menu rather than the Open Shell menu. I'd have to press the Windows key to do that. Now, for example, press the Windows key now, it of course brings up the Windows 11 start. So what I've done here is I've actually installed another application known as Start All Back. And I'm going to go ahead and re-enable this. So I've unchecked that, and I'm going to log off and log back in. And I'll show you this alternative option. And of course, there's the Windows 11 lock screen. Looks a bit different than Windows 10. So Windows 11 has a new Seago font, at least for certain parts of the OS. So we're back in Windows 11. You can see now the taskbar icons are on the left, and we have this neat start menu that works like Windows 7, but it's themed to look like Windows 11, which I think is pretty cool. The only catch to this is this is not free. Although they give you 100 days worth of free trial to try it out, and then it's $4.99, which is not bad. I mean, $5, which is not bad. But then again, that's per computer. That's a per computer license. So if you have 5 computers, well, that's $25. So, I mean, so if you just have one computer, for example, this will definitely be a good option. So, and you may have noticed something funny. Windows Movie Maker 6.0, yeah, that's the Windows Vista Movie Maker. I installed that earlier today when I was trying stuff out, and it does indeed run, so it's funny. Now, it does this too, and this is actually something it does on Windows 10. I actually have to. Oh, and look, another thing that this start application does is it gives you back. This is what I was looking for, guys, earlier. This is what I preferred to have. When you right-click the taskbar, you expect to have more than just taskbar properties. You expect to have all these other options here. So, very nice. And, for example, this is what I would do here. So I have to kind of patch out this file to stop it from executing. But other than that, yeah, the classic Windows Vista Movie Maker, it still works. It still works. It doesn't work that great. It's like I say, I have actually moved away from the Vista Movie Maker. Finally, guys, finally, I've found a different video editor that suits my needs really well, and I'm going to focus on that in a later video. So yeah, you may have noticed if you've been watching my videos for a while, you may have noticed some differences in my videos that were uploaded in the past few weeks. Yeah, guys, I've officially changed video editors. Finally found something that was decent, in my opinion, easy to use. And yeah, so this new application that replaces your start menu, it does a lot more actually. I'm curious. Let's pull up something here and look here, guys. So this application here, it's funny, I forget the name of it. I just installed it today. Start All Back. So it's made by the company Start Is Back. They've been around since Windows 8, I believe. Yeah, Windows 8. They made a start menu for Windows 8 because, of course, the start screen was just, y'all know, it's horrible. It's terrible. So I would definitely say if you're going to use Windows 11, just Start All Back. I'd say it's definitely 100% worth the $4.99. Buy it, install it, and you'll have your Windows 7 style start menu. You'll have your right-click options, and when you're in File Explorer, you don't have to show all options. You have everything you need right there. Why couldn't they have gotten this right before? I mean, beats me. So I'm curious to see exactly what all that has done. So let's go into settings here. Let's go to apps. And no, it hasn't done any of that. This is still the typical. So this is, again, as I think I showed in a clip earlier, this is what you have for your default apps. Instead of having the various options like photos, videos, music player, web browser, it's based off of every installed application on the computer. And to change a setting, like for example, if I'm Media Player Classic here, this video player. Now, you can see here that it's based off of every file type. Let's say video file type, for example. You have to go through and change these one by one, and it's just so frustrating. Why would they do this? It's beyond me, guys. It's just beyond me. Why would they do that? I mean, Windows 11 definitely had some good things going for it. I mean, it's definitely like Windows Vista. It's like eye candy. You got these transparent menus and stuff, and you got, of course, you got the visual effects, kind of like Windows Era back in the day. But then you have things like the difficulty to change your default browser, which I have set Chrome as my default browser. But like I say, you have to go through a bunch of hoops to do it, and it's just stuff like that makes Windows 11 a bit less appealing. I can't say I will not upgrade to it, but it might be a little while before I actually take the plunge and actually do it. So, in my opinion, it's like I say, Windows 11. It's a nice, pretty OS. but there's just so many things about it that really need to be addressed, especially the ability to set your own applications. It's like Microsoft is trying to make it so difficult for you to set what you want to use as default. I mean, it is your computer, right? Is it? I mean, is it your computer or is it Microsoft's computer? Because they seem to treat you like it's their PC. Like you have to sign up with one of their accounts to Windows 11 Home or Windows 11 Pro if you have it plugged into a network connection. You have to use their account to log into your own computer that you just bought brand new. Let's say if you went to the store and bought a new computer that came pre-installed Windows 11. You gotta have internet access just to set the thing up. Unless it's Windows 11 Pro, then you have the option to bypass it. And once you get into the OS, you have certain things like, again, the difficulty of setting your own defaults. It's like they treat you like it's not your computer. And don't even get me started on Windows Update. Windows Update's kind of the same deal. So yeah, guys, that's my take on Windows 11. It's not a terrible OS, but it's not a very great OS either. It's something that I wouldn't exactly be super compelled to upgrade to, although I probably am going to upgrade a mid-tower Lux to it, probably in the near future, probably sometime this year. There are some things you have to, there's quite a few things you have to do to the OS to make it usable. And sadly with Microsoft, this has been a normal thing with them since Windows 8. Windows 8 started it. They continued with it in Windows 10. And here they continue again in Windows 11. Windows 7 was the last operating system Microsoft released that was user-centered. It was basically designed for an optimal user experience. Windows 8, however, no, of course, total disaster. It's like taking your computer and limiting it to the functionality of a smartphone. Maybe not to that degree, but kind of close to it with the start screen and all that mess. Windows 8.1 made it a little better, but still. Windows 10, much better, but still a lot of things about it. For example, Windows Update, dropping support for Windows Media Center, stuff like that. I never really liked. However, I did upgrade to Windows 10 pretty quickly. If I remember, I was actually running Windows 10 by the end of 2015 on my computers. But Windows 11, it's like, as you know, Windows 11 came out in 2021, and here it is 2022, and I'm only testing it. I have not installed it yet on any of my main systems. The Plexi, of course, doesn't have it. The Plexi is definitely not compatible with it, but there's a catch, and I'm going to talk about that in a later video too, provided everything works out with that. And of course, mid-tower Lux ain't running it either. And the TV computers, I'll forget it. There's no real reason to install it on them either. So, Windows 11, it's like I say, it could be the next Windows Vista, because let alone the fact that your computer, unless you have a Ryzen 2000 system or later, mid-tower Black Max will run it. My parent system, it has a Ryzen 2000 series APU. Or if you have an Intel 8th Gen Core series CPU or better. I mean, those, unless you have that, you're kind of left out in the cold, unless you unofficially install it like we've done here. And the funny thing about it is Microsoft is not making it very difficult to do that. They even published information on their own website on how to modify the registry to allow for an in-place upgrade to Windows 11 despite not meeting the requirements. And those requirements, I'm going to be honest with you, it reminds me of so Microsoft years ago when Windows 10 came out, they said that Windows 10 would be a free upgrade for Windows 7 and Windows 8 users, but the catch was it would only be a free upgrade for the first year. They ran that infamous Get Windows 10 app on Windows 7 and Windows 8 systems. Oh, you just go back on my channel and look at videos about that where I've ranted about it. It was, I had so many systems brought to me or I've had so many calls or messages from people that I work on computers for, saying my computer booted up this morning to have Windows 10 installed on it. I didn't install it. I mean, it was so ridiculous. And I think Microsoft, I think they even got sued over it, if I remember right. The infamous Get Windows 10 push. And of course, in 2016 that ran out and nothing much was ever said. But the fact was, you could continue to get Windows 10 for free if you have Windows 7 or Windows 8. You could either clean install it, and in the case of it being a Windows 7 computer, having a standalone product sticker key, a product key sticker, you would just enter in that product key, and you could get you would activate your Windows 10. Or if you had a Windows 8 computer that had the WIM key in the motherboard, it was just, you just simply install it, and there you are. And I knew I kind of figured because of that Microsoft never really would retire the free upgrade to Windows 10. Matter of fact, I mean, even now you can still get Windows 10 for free on Windows 7 systems. And let's say your computer was a newer Windows 7 system. Let's say you had a much newer system that you ran Windows 7 on until, let's say, 2020. You could probably upgrade that system to Windows 10 and then turn around and upgrade it to Windows 11. And you may have to use the trick to get it to install on unofficial hardware. But hey, you could still install it. But anyways, that's my opinions on Windows 11. Like I say, not a terrible OS, but not a great OS either. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
Well, everybody, that wraps it up for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the computer channel, and be sure to tick that bell so you'll get notified when new videos are posted. Also, don't forget, I have a whole lot of other interesting videos here on the channel to check out. And also, in addition, I have a second channel, CubeCompMTDX, where I have all sorts of other videos not exactly related to technology. Links to the channels are available at the end of this video. Again, I thank you for your support, and thanks for watching this video.